My name is Scott, and I have a Fragile X pre-mutation as well as FAXTAS. I want to give some background on our family to give some context to what you will see and hear on this channel in the future. We have 3 generations of Fragile X pre-mutation in my family: myself, my daughter, and 2 of my grandsons. I'm currently 55 years old. I do have a FAXTAS diagnosis. I have tremors, gait and balance issues, neuropathy, sleep issues. I'm starting to notice some issues with swallowing, and it is painful to turn my head in either direction, side to side. There has been some talk about having a mild spectrum disorder that's never been officially diagnosed. The FAXTAS symptoms are what affect me day to day. My symptoms of FAXTAS started showing up in my very early 30s, which is much younger than the average. Recently, my symptoms have started getting worse. I'm supposed to use a cane now for the balance and gait issues, but I'm not very good about following that instruction. At this point, I'm going to list the other diagnoses that my daughter and grandchildren have. And we'll start with Christy, who's my daughter. In addition to the pre-mutation, she has von Willebrand's disease, long QT syndrome, which is a cardiac issue, history of PCOS and endometriosis, PTSD, anxiety, neuropathy, insomnia, and tremors. My grandson Jacob, who is 16, has the Fragile X pre-mutation, hypomelanosis of Ito, ADHD, autism, anxiety, scoliosis, a history of a tethered cord syndrome, astigmatism, tarsal coalitions in both feet, and it's suspected that he has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. My grandson Blake, who's 15, has the Fragile X pre-mutation, cerebral palsy with spasticities, epilepsy, asthma, schizophrenia, anxiety. He has an arachnoid cyst in the posterior fossa, polymorphous light eruption, which is a sun allergy, migraines, abdominal migraines, which is something I had never even heard of prior to him being diagnosed with it, esotropia, and a history of tracheomalacia. This project started because I was looking for a way to connect more with Blake. He's very interested in the film industry and pretty much always talks about video games or Disney movies. Those subjects don't interest me at all, and I tend to check out when he starts talking about them. So I came up with this podcast YouTube thing, and he loved the idea. So that meant I had to research how to do all this podcast stuff and what we wanted this to look like. So here's a format that we will be trying to follow for now. We want to release an episode a week that is obviously filmed in advance, that will include Blake talking about different issues that he has or concerns that he has and how he deals with them in his day-to-day life. Jacob will likely have a smaller role in these episodes because he doesn't really seem too interested in it, and maybe that'll change as time goes on. Christy and I will contribute to those episodes with conversations on the medicine and the research being done in the Fragile X community, as well as answering questions about how we deal with the issues in our family. At some point, Christy and I will start having some live conversations on YouTube, Facebook, and maybe other places as well. So that's it for our introductions. We'd love to have you start suggesting topics or asking questions now. Just make a comment wherever you happen to see this video posted. Thanks for watching and listening, and I hope that you will continue to follow us in this journey. So there's two parts on this. First one being, do you know what you want to do after high school?
Yes, I want to get into the movie industry.
In what role?
I want to be an actor.
Okay. What made you want to do a podcast or YouTube thing?
Well, the reason I want to get into acting is to make at least one person happy using the medium of video entertainment. And that, I feel like I could, that's been my dream. I feel like I could do that with this podcast.
What do you hope to get out of all of this?
To fulfill my dream. Make at least one person happy.
Okay. What do you think of the process of doing this?
It's honestly kind of fascinating.
Is there anything that you didn't really expect that?
I did not expect like movie set level equipment.
Going forward in this YouTube channel, podcast, whatever, wherever it is online, do you think that somebody out there might be able to learn something from you?
Well, I mean, sure. Maybe how to be optimistic. Maybe how to get through tough times you didn't know were able to be surpassed. Well, judging from what I've been saying so far, definitely not how to stay humble.
If you could go back in time to, say, when you were 10, so 5 years ago, what would you tell yourself to maybe do differently or something like that? What would you tell yourself?
I would tell myself, in the future, you're going to be a big jerk. Don't be a big jerk.
Okay, that's valid. What did you mean on this list of topics by non-adventure life?
Just normal life.
Just your normal day-to-day.
Yeah.
Do you struggle with certain things in your day-to-day life?
I struggle with my, as I wrote, non-adventure life, because my non-adventure life, I guess, I am having an adventurous life so much that my non-adventure life is kind of an adventure.
Okay. What kind of adventures have you had in your life that you remember?
That was the time where I was trying to fall asleep to Madagascar 3 at 3 a.m. and which, yes, I get the meme. And ended up trying to do the mid-air barrel roll that Vitaly, the tiger in the movie, does, and ended up cracking my skull open on a wooden desk.
That's an adventure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just another way. Yeah, my parents paid me to make up that story to tell kids to not copy TV shows. Yep, totally didn't happen. Totally didn't happen.
What do you think doing this, I guess I should say, how do you think that doing this will help or affect in some way your daily life? Or will it at all?
That is actually a tough question. What I am hoping it does is bring a bit more self-awareness to others about the issues of Fragile X. Just like around, like, I don't want to say around my school, but like around the world. Whenever I've told people about Fragile X, they're mostly just on their phones or spacing out, which is why I have a very tight-knit group of friends. So maybe this podcast could bring a bit more self-awareness.
Okay. You have two brothers. The youngest being adopted, he does not have Fragile X, but your older brother does. Seeing your older brother's issues and the way he is affected by Fragile X, his personality, the way he exists in this world, is very different than you. So do you think that Fragile X is a smaller component in your day-to-day life when compared to the other issues that you deal with, like the cerebral palsy or the hypertonia? What do you think about that?
Another thing that I haven't been able to mention about my Fragile X is that, in fact, I didn't even put it in the list, but whenever it's hot outside, like above 73 degrees, I start getting what we call anxiety itches, where my body will just start itching anywhere. Um, and, and that is why I definitely not say it's the worst offender, but I definitely say it's somewhere in the middle.
Okay. One thing that we haven't talked about so far is that you also have a cyst in your brain.
Yep.
Do you feel like that is causing some of your day-to-day issues, or do you think it more likely that it's the Fragile X or the cerebral palsy?
Oh, definitely. It's definitely part of the cyst. But I don't think it's all of the cyst.
Okay.
Because I was having some of these issues long before the cyst.
I guess the other thing that we hadn't talked about is at some point, a couple weeks before you were born to a couple weeks after, you had bilateral bleeds in your brain that did cause some damage. Do you feel like that is the culprit for a lot of your stuff? Kind of like I just asked it, or do you still think that it's mostly Fragile X and CP?
I think it's a combination of things. The bilateral bleeding not being the least of them.
Okay.